Bitch, I don't fuck you, nigga.
Yeah, he's not even black. He's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, man, you right.
Why are you running away?
We turn Christians into
guys
traitors.
to attack you and you just.
I want to spit in your butthole and put heavy dick inside you, man.
That's I'll give you some ramen, bro. You don't. I'll give you ramen noodles, bro. You can handle those ramen noodles. There's 20 ramen noodles. You got
Latinos kill more Christians.
Chico.
Latinos kill more whites in America, nigga, than Arabs. Faggot ass nigga.
I'm not Arab.
I know you're a Christian. You're the ones who want to fuck in the ass.
I think his name's actually.
No, I like Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus is my boy.
You like dick?
No, Jesus is my boy. I mean, I have a dick. Like, imagine walking around with a dick all day. That's pretty gay, bro. Chico,
Would you suck Jesus' dick?
Chico,
you suck his dick?
No, you just walk around with a dick all day. That's pretty gay.
So you want to suck
like, imagine touching a dick to go pee.
Yo,
like,
you're stop really talking about this. I'm eating like a lot.
Actually, I think both of you are gay, but that's fine. You could be DL.
Now, Dr. Amos, another perfect example. There'll never be coexistence ever, Dr. Amos.
Be quiet. Quiet, Republican. Your voice is annoying as fuck, and you're not even funny. Okay?
Yeah, you're a Republican.
I'm sorry, but there just won't be coexistence because of people like you, Dr. Maj, and Chico, and AK, and other people. There'll never be coexistence because people like this exist.
Hey, yo.
I love Black Man Chico.
Hey, yo. Pause.
Hey, Amos, so can you...
No diddy.
Maybe? I don't know.
Are you getting slightly turned on by this conversation between AK and Chico?
Yeah. I'm getting really flustered. Yeah, it's really hot.
Are you still eating your popsicle?
No, I'm eating my lollipop.
Or whatever. Same.
Yeah. Well, I'm licking on it, Billy.
Almost, do you like this type of conversation?
Yeah, for me it doesn't matter which kind of conversation. I like a little bit arguments, cursing a little bit. In this room you can do a lot. As long as you don't interfere, you know. If you come here to interfere, I will not let you. But as long as this conversation, a little bit argument,
yeah, as long as we take turns.
I don't mind.
But how does this help further coexistence, Dr. Amos? We want coexistence now, and this is not coexistence. This is vulgarity, low IQ, stupid people.
No, the thing is, Republican, you're not attacking us spiritually or emotionally. You're just talking shit. Like, if you were, like, actually giving us an argument, I think there'd be a conversation, but you're just complaining.
It's my complaint. It's my opinion. It's my argument. You don't like it. That's a you problem.
No, you're not responsible for my feelings, but I'm not emotional about it.
You're responsible for your feelings. I'm responsible for mine.
So why are you acting like that?
Because your conversation has nothing to do with coexistence. What don't you understand?
Chill.
Your conversation has nothing to do with coexistence.
No, that is coexistence.
Almost, by the way, just FYI, if you don't want your room to be killed, I would remove Republicans. I know you don't like to remove people, but he definitely is
You're the type of guy who will never achieve coexistence, Dr. Maj. That's a you problem.
Yeah.
We can start a new page, okay? That's in the past. We
could keep him as content. We could keep him as content and kick him in the head every now and then.
Maybe, this is the progression, like this healing circle. You know, we're healing Republican right now.
You think this is what coexistence is all about?
I don't know what it's about, but like what I do know about it is that I'm supposed to attack you spiritually and like emotionally, and then make you stay.
You're projecting your own dysfunction onto me.
Yeah, attack him in the bedroom.
I'm gonna add you.
No, that's too physical. No physical. Non-violent challenges, please. I'm not trying to aggressively attack Republican.
No, you should, actually, because he's annoying as fuck.
But then,
you're projecting, Dr. Maj. That's a you problem. You're extremely annoying as F word.
Why do you sound like you're croaking?
Right, he's so annoying. Like he's sucking a dick or something. I'm gonna go.
You
and
think
find
I'm
a
sucking a
podcast.
dick? I'm not sucking anything. You suck dicks. You're projecting.
That's
Everything we are is what we say, and you're projecting.
You know why he's acting like that, right? That's the fentanyl I gave him.
I mean, fentanyl does the opposite. It actually makes you like chill out. You hunch over. That's how you know they're on Fenty. It's like because they're hunched over.
He needs more. He needs some dog food.
Yeah.
He needs some dog food. Heroin.
You're projecting.
I would eat my dog's food.
No, they call it heroin dog food. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a slang. Motherfucker.
You learn something new. This is coexistence, Republican. That's all. Learning new things.
Do you know how to bark like a dog?
Listen, let's just pray it gets worse.
I can make my dog bark on command.
Let's just pray it gets worse, okay? And we have a bigger division. Let's just pray for that, okay?
I'm sorry, Dr. Amos, if I ruined your room about coexistence. Because it's obviously not a comedy room. It's a very serious room about peace in the Middle East.
Talk to you. You need to go to Georgia, go to Atlanta, go to Martin Luther King Jr.'s house. Okay, you can go to his house, and you can go to the church he was brought up in. Like he was a pastor at this church that he grew up in, and he did like 450 speeches a year, and he traveled 350.
Wrong. He doesn't. What did he call him? How did he describe him?
I think he compared him to a methed out psychopath who was holding an entire nation of people hostage, I believe was the
He also said on here that he wasn't anti-Semitic until the Holocaust. There were no speeches of Hitler's in the 1930s. No, he said he was not public about it.
He said he was downplaying it to win. He said there was a period where he was downplaying it to win over popular support in Germany.
There is no historian of World War II who thinks that Hitler was downplaying anti-Semitism in the 1930s. That was what he was doing. He wrote a book about it in the 1920s. He got to power on it, and he grew his power on the back of it. The idea that you can argue that in the 1930s, Adolf Hitler was downplaying the anti-Semitism, there's no historian who would agree with that. So why would you throw out the idea that in the 1930s, Hitler was not being anti-Semitic in public? That was what he was doing in public. He announces to the German parliament what he wants to do. So when you're throwing out claims like he was keeping it down in the 1930s, first of all, what are you doing? And secondly, why?
Okay. I mean, I think that it's kind of hard because I don't even know exactly what Daryl's point on that was. And so I'm not really in a position to argue what he was saying there. I don't think you're giving him the most charitable interpretation.
I don't need to give him the most charitable interpretation to be able to see what he's doing.
I should say.
Look, anyone can look up what he said on this show and others, what these two guys in particular have said on repeated podcasts with both of you. It's an attempt to downplay Hitler and always to do down church.
I don't think you downplay
Hitler. No, I said in conversations with you and others, this is the shtick of these guys. They've decided it's edgy and funny, and I think this is very, very interesting and also very dangerous because we live in an era now that the right has got some mojo back in America. We saw years of crazy left overreach where they tried to make us all say the craziest things. And completely predictably, there are now figures on the right playing with really dark and ugly stuff on their side.
I agree
and
with
they
that.
are mainstreaming this. And I think it's partly being mainstreamed by the two people I just described. And both of you have kept speaking to these people. And you don't get on the historians who know about this. And that's just alarming to me.
Well, can I just say, because I kind of do agree with part of what you said there. Like, I do think it is true that almost as a reaction to like the woke insanity that we've seen on the left, and I think nobody's been a more effective critic of that than you. I do think there has kind of been a right-wing reaction that has embraced racialism and
Okay, I'm assuming no.
No, I'm assuming yes. Yeah, of course.
I said, nigga, you got a purse, nigga. He's like, this ain't no purse. I said, nigga, it's a purse, nigga. I said, nigga, that's my little sister, nigga.
Tweet, you making me mad. You making me mad, Tweet. Tweet, come up. I don't gotta see you know anybody. I gotta do is hit your. You know, Tweet, man.
Welcome back to another episode of Low IQ Dumb People, aka Tanner 2028, the presidential run that's not happening, and all you weird people updated your PTR with some weird shit called vote for some dumb motherfucker named Tanner. Ain't nobody running for president named Tanner, you brainwashed, hypnotized, dumb motherfuckers. Tanner ain't running for no president. You all just in another clown house room LARPing, pretending to be something, but it's the dumbest shit I've ever seen, and you are all the more stupid for it. Congratulations on wasting a perfectly good Saturday yet again. You dumb motherfuckers. Go get a life, go to the park, go to the gym, read a book, have a dinner. Do anything other than pretend somebody named Tanner's running for president. Ain't no motherfucker named Tanner running for president, you brainwashed, hypnotized, stupid motherfuckers. All right, I'm complete, you stupid, low IQ, dumb, extremely stupid motherfuckers. I'm going out for a nice gym. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to go for a nice power walk in the sun. Then I'm going to take a hot shower. And then I'm going to have a nice chicken dinner. And I'm going to remember how I roasted all these dumb motherfuckers wasting all their fucking time talking about nothing. Get ready to self-roast, you stupid fucks. Enjoy your own barbecue. You what's for dinner, you all roasted. You got cooked like turkey, like bacon, like a cheeseburger, like a set of ribs, like pork, like lamb chops. You all what's for dinner?
With this absolute beyond the pale thing, why somebody like Jake Shields wants to play around with Holocaust denial? Why?
I can't answer for Jake Shields. I don't know.
Why do you think?
I have no idea. I think
I'm telling
a lot of people get captured by audience
captured by their audience.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You get a lot of positive reinforcement from a bunch of twisted people.
Well, it's also, there's something about, Michael Malice had that great line. He goes, when you take the red pill, you're supposed to take one and not swallow the whole bottle. Yes. And I think there's like this dynamic. What happens is, and then, of course, people know the red pill is the analogy from the Matrix. The idea that you wake up to realizing that so much of the stuff you believed was bullshit propaganda and is all lies. And this is a real danger when the establishment and the institutions are all caught with their pants down, having sold a bunch of very consequential policies based on lies. And then once people realize that, they go, well, what else have they been lying to me about? And then they almost want to look into every single thing and go, yeah, I think the whole thing was lies. Now, I agree with you. There's danger in that. And I think that there are some things that then people jump to conclusions that are totally wrong. But I guess I tend to look at that and go, well, then maybe the people with power, not random podcasters, but like the people with real power should do a better job of not lying through their fucking teeth about everything.
Well, maybe you have power.
That looks so good. For us, modding is like creating art.
And Eva's got everything we need to take our projects to the next level. I like to think.
Maybe you have power, both of you. We live in an era where podcasters have a lot of power. If you go on a podcast with Jake Shields, and Jake Shields goes on to another podcast and says he doesn't think 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, what do you think's happening there? That's an exercise of power. Okay? And I agree with you about the breakdown of trust. Absolutely. We have lived through an era where, in real time, we saw something called a conspiracy, the lab leak, which turns out to be true, as you and others said it might be from the beginning.
I find that to be very racist.
And against Joe,
against both of you.
It used to be racist when we were saying that it was likely that the COVID variant had come out from the place making COVID variants.
Especially since it's the exact
just seemed like it. Seemed like it was possible to us.
By the way,
what
ask yourself this: who has access to your medical history? In theory, it's just you and your doctor. But in reality, hundreds of shady companies called data brokers are keeping tabs on every symptom you Google, every treatment you research, and every pre-existing condition they think you might have. That's valuable intel for advertisers and insurance companies who will take any excuse to raise your premiums. But there's a way to get your privacy back, and that is with ExpressVPN. With ExpressVPN, 100% of your online activity is rerouted through secure encrypted servers. This makes it impossible for third parties to invade your privacy. ExpressVPN also hides your IP address, which is the number you...
Johnson won because of research. And they go, no, what happened is these freaks were eating bat heads.
That's right.
Like, wait, that's not racist?
Pretty
the
racist.
other one was racist?
They're eating pangolins.
Yeah. Well, that one fell apart in front of our eyes.
Well, it
and
took
of course,
4
it
years.
took 4 years. And I've said repeatedly, it's kind of inevitable to me that if you see something that is called a racist conspiracy theory fall apart and become also what we used to call true in a few years, it's likely to blow a lot of people's minds. But the question then is, do you help those minds that have been blown blow themselves out some more by doing a whole load of other conspiracy stuff? Do you decide to go, hey, what else have we been lied to? Maybe Churchill wasn't a great guy. Maybe Hitler wasn't such a bad guy. Maybe the Holocaust.
Nobody is saying that. No one is saying maybe Hitler wasn't such a bad guy.
You are saying that.
No
You're
one's
saying
saying
that in the 1930s, Hitler kept the anti-Semitism down.
No, that's not what he's saying. What he was saying is that he didn't do it as publicly. He was doing it in meetings because the support for that kind of thinking wasn't as ubiquitous as it was.
I've seen this before. I know exactly what these guys are drinking. They're drinking a couple of very, very discredited historians like David Irving, and they are just regurgitating it. And it was always been the same thing. It is always an attempt to minimize Hitler's anti-Semitism actions. Eventually down the road, you get to minimizing his actual involvement in the Holocaust, and then you can go on to the next stage.
You can't say that about Daryl.
I think what you're guilty of here is kind of similar to, I think, something that the woke left has done, which is this concept creep, where you're talking about some people online who are doing this thing, and then you're lumping in other people with them. Listen, I'll just say this right now. Daryl Cooper is currently, I believe, almost finished, or he's working on a big World War II series. And when this comes out,
it going to be on?
we can see. Yeah, he does long form podcasts. When this comes out, I'm quite confident to say beforehand that if you're going into it expecting him to be downplaying,
to be a state.
Well, okay, then let's see how that.
This is exactly how the Arabs feel about Israel. The Arabs existed, regardless how you feel about it in that land, in Jerusalem, for 1,400 years.
Oh my gosh!
It's weird to me that it's called Jerusalem when it literally is comprised of Jews.
It's called Jerusalem. It's not even pronounced Jerusalem. These dumb fucks don't even know how to pronunciate. It's called Jerusalem.
Let's be civil, please. Let's be civil and no cursing. Thank you.
Let's be serious, dude.
Listen, the Jews rock, and anybody who hates the Jews is a loser.
Okay. Thank you. Now let's focus on the point here. The thing is, no, the Jews never ever, even when you read about Ben Gurion and other Jews, they never disputed that the Arabs were there. By the way, they never ever disputed. But it's not a democracy. It's not about the Arabs existing there or not.
Let me ask you a question, honestly. What is an Arab? I mean, isn't that just like an ethnic group?
It's not originally. Well, okay, I'm gonna give you a short explanation. Originally, the word Arab was not ethnic. Originally, it was just geographical. For example, since the Roman times, you had Philip the Arab. He was only called that way because he was from Yemen. From Yemen, it was just geographical.
What about when the Romans went against ancient Judea?
Can I say something? They were Jew. Can I please?
Yes, they were Jews. Yes.
That was 2,000 or 100 years ago. It's 2025, you guys. Are you all time travelers too?
Please, like I would like to comment on this, Jacob. 2,000 years ago, when Titus of Rome displaced and scattered the Jews all over the place, the Romans were the reason why the Jews aren't.
Get your point. Like, there was lots of pushback. If you were saying he should go and debate somebody who's giving him pushback on that, okay, maybe. I also think it's reasonable for him to say, I don't really do debates.
Yeah, I think it's weird to mainstream very fringe views constantly and not give another side. I think that's weird.
Well, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a contradiction here. You're saying now that these are fringe views, but then you're also saying that these are enormously powerful views.
No. There's no contradiction. Let me clear it up if you think there is. I think there are very fringe views that have become mainstreamed on the right.
But then aren't they not fringe by definition?
Sure, you can play an epistemological game.
I'm just saying let's be accurate.
You do understand the concept, don't you?
That fringe ideas become mainstreamed. Yeah. Okay, right. Sure.
So that's it.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure. So you're saying that Joe shouldn't have Daryl Cooper on?
I'm saying that
he should debate.
That there will have that if you mainstream very, very fringe views, which are easily able to be debunked. If you mainstream them, at some point that view that was so fringe will be what eager, very disconnected, unhappy people are going to start playing with too. And if these people are such experts in how you see a society go weird, they can look at what is happening to a portion of the right everywhere on this stuff. There is a portion of the right across the West that is playing this very dark game, and they're doing it deliberately, and you can't not be aware of that.
I agree with that. I don't think Daryl Cooper is doing that, but I do agree with your characterization. I think it's a pretty important distinction there.
You're just taking this one statement, and then where he's trying to joke around with his buddy, this Churchill statement, and this is the basis.
He and these other guys are all doing the anti-Churchill stuff now.
But he's not doing an anti-Churchill stuff.
He and the other Churchill in the orbit.
Churchill was the author of this whole Operation Unthinkable, right? Where they wanted to use the Nazis to invade Russia. Wasn't that Churchill?
He wrote the Zohar?
Savings you just can't beat. Oh, this orange is gross.
If you have to wipe yourself raw just to get clean,
Is that not true?
We're going to have to get into the weeds on Churchill. There is always going to be a corner which you can get me on a bit of Churchill. But you'd have to say which bit you're talking about.
A comprehensive view.
Yeah, Churchill was never working with the Germans to invade Russia.
No. This is a plan that was drawn up. Do you know about Operation Unthinkable? Pull it up, Jimmy. Operation Unthinkable was at the end of the war. I believe Churchill was concerned about the rise of Russia in the rise of the Soviet Union. And the idea was to find out what the historical facts are about this. Operation Unthinkable, the name given to two related possible future war plans developed by the British Chiefs of Staff Committee against the Soviet Union during 1945. The plans were never implemented. The creation of the plans was ordered by the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill on May 1945 and developed by the British Armed Forces Joint Planning Staff in May 1945, the end of World War II in Europe. One plan assumed a surprise attack on the Soviet forces stationed in Germany to oppose the will of the United States and the British Empire upon Russia. The will was qualified as a square deal for Poland, but added that does not necessarily limit the military commitment. The assessment signed by the Chief of Army Staff on 9 June 1945 concluded it would be beyond our power to win a quick but limited success, and we would be committed to a protracted war against heavy odds. The code was,
This is okay. First of all, I never do Wikipedia.
Okay, but that's okay.
Wikipedia. No, that's okay. It's okay.
This is just what Jamie pulled up.
Okay, but first of all, yes, at the end of the war, a plan requested that wasn't seen through that suggests that after the defeat of Nazism, communism of the Soviet form is also going to be a threat to Europe, was simply evidence of, it was obvious.
True.
It's what Churchill had worried about throughout the 40s. He worried about it at Yalta. He worried about it everywhere. I'm sorry, but I have to return to this point that this man manages to do one of the most heroic things in human history in standing alone against evil in its most concentrate form. And he does about as much as any human being can do to save the civilized world. If you just park that and you go on to a plan in 1945 to try to counter Soviet domination of Europe, you see what I'm saying? This is not doing something in the round.
Yeah, it's also, look, I mean, I'm not even like I'm not at all the expert on World War II. And I'm not like going to debate with you about World War II, but I would say that like there's a lot of room for nuance and disagreement with what you just said. You know, in the 20th century, we had 2 world wars. They're the worst thing, objectively speaking, the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. And the Second World War is the biggest bloodbath in human history. And it ended with handing the man who you just mentioned, Joseph Stalin, half of Europe. So listen, if you want to argue, I'm Jewish and like of German descent, so like I'm not against the argument that it was the Nazis had to be defeated and that was the most important thing, but there still is just the basic facts that it almost couldn't have gone worse. It was like just a nightmare for civilization. And if people want to look back at that and go, man, was there any other way this could have been handled? Was there any other way? Were there blunders that were made here? Now, personally, where I feel much more comfortable arguing would be that I try to blame everything I can on Woodrow Wilson as much as I can, because also he created the income tax and the Federal Reserve and did so much to damage my country. But I think American entry into World War I was really a disaster, and imposing the Treaty of Versailles on Germany was a disaster. I also think that's kind of fairly mainstream history. Like, that's not a particularly controversial view that like imposing the Treaty of Versailles on Germany ended up in disaster.
Well, no, except that as Martin Amis said, the only way to not get to the Treaty of Versailles would be for Germany to win World War I. But yeah.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the Nazis winning the war.
Sure.
We're talking about, listen, I think that...
But secondly, sorry, I just have to address that fundamental. You say the outcome of World War II and everything that happened in it was the worst thing that's ever happened, and the worst thing imaginable, worst possible outcome, you said.
No. Just about.
You said worst possible outcome. Let me give you a much worse possible outcome. Hitler wins.
Right. Okay. Sure.
So it's not the worst possible outcome.
I mean,
that's true.
Listen, but okay, Hitler. Yes. Okay. I'm not saying you can't dream up a worse outcome. I'm saying what you had.
Not dreaming up. That's just what my country and others went through.
What did end up happening was 60 million people died, including the Holocaust, and then Joseph Stalin takes half of Europe. So okay, fine. I'll correct that. There is a worse outcome.
Right.
But that's not a great one.
No, nobody said it was. This is like There's a very weird argument that you now hear about this. This attempt to revision this, and I know why it's happening.
I don't think there's anything that's revisionist.
I think there is. But this attempt to sort of say, look, at the end of World War II, what have we got? Stalin has half of Europe. What was the point? And so on. That's going on. That's going on. And there are people who are feeding it. That argument is very similar. This particular school of, as it were, history is doing something that I've seen happen with American history as well, particularly with Lincoln. Lincoln's an interesting comparison to make with Churchill on this. There are people who will criticize Churchill for mistakes made, not hard to do. Quite hard not to make mistakes while fighting at a war of total annihilation against your country. People will say, oh, he didn't sort this out in 1945. It's rather like Lincoln. He didn't solve every problem in the world for all time, but he solved a hell of a big problem for his time. And that requires some kind of generosity of spirit and understanding in hindsight, as opposed to, I will find something that he did that I wouldn't have done, because if I'd have been running the British Empire in 1939, I'd have known exactly how to do it, and I'd have known how to hold the whole thing together, and I'd have kept Stalin back, and he'd have been great at Yalta. And this is...
I don't think anybody's saying that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a tendency of like woke left kids to do this, but I don't think that's what certainly not what I'm saying, and I don't think what Daryl's saying. I do also think that one of the bigger kind of the bigger picture dynamics to all of this is that we have, at least since 9/11, been in a state of perpetual war. And all of these wars have been disasters. They have been so many lies involved in selling all of them. I mean, the whole Iraq war, the whole war in Afghanistan, just lying the whole way through. I mean, I remember literally having conversations with Green Berets in the middle of the war in Afghanistan, and they're like, George W. Bush is telling you that the army we're building up there is really successful. This thing's going to fall in a week without us. And then all through the Obama administration, it's just like lie after lie after lie with disastrous wars. And so this does create a fertile ground for people to say, I wonder if they were lying about all these wars.
Sure.
Again, I'm not really trying to argue about World War II. I'd rather argue about
Diego. I know you all had the conversation up here about your perfect website. Now it's time to have that same conversation with wins. That is whole.
Well, should you not talk about mistakes that were made overall?
Absolutely.
Okay, you should.
Absolutely. Right. I'm all for going back and looking at mistakes.
So what is your argument then?
It's a very weird thing to go back, zone in on a man, say this one thing is a mistake and should characterize him, and you ignore everything else.
You're taking him out of context when you're talking about Daryl, who's done, what was it, 30 plus hours?
So what? 30 plus hours of podcasting. You do that in a week.
UFC 314 is headed to South Beach, and it won't be all glitz and glamour, but the stars will be out. Don't miss any of the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. It promises to be another banger.
BG.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Must expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Yeah, but it's a very different thing.
He's not doing a podcast like talking to people.
Okay, nor is he doing scholarly work, nor is he working in the archives. Clearly, come on. I mean, he is not the historian of our era.
He's not claiming to be.
This is the thing, Joe. This is like punching jelly.
No, but you can adapt
around
his work.
Well, I'm saying because I don't need to consume endless versions of a revisionist history. I understand. I know where this comes
revisionist
from.
history. If you listen to his work, it's not revisionist history. He's basing it on historical.
But I know. But okay. So this is my point about jelly. It's a shape-shifting thing. Comedian or historian.
He's not a comedian.
Historian or podcast. Oh, it would be historian or actual historian. You say he doesn't claim to be a historian, but he's pumping out tens of hours of
neither
history.
Does Dan Carlin. He doesn't claim to be a historian either.
You see my point about the move. It's like some weird jiu-jitsu move.
No, I don't.
Where you say, hang on, you know all about this as well. You say, I'm not a historian, but I'm going to spend my time talking about history. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. It's a weird move, yeah?
No.
You don't think?
No, I'm a free American. I can talk about what I like to.
What you want.
So what is the point
I've noticed you can, but
so
we all can.
Point?
The point is, what are you pushing? What are you watering?
What am I pushing?
Yes.
Liberty, free markets, peace, prosperity, not getting in another stupid catastrophic war, which we're on the precipice of right now. That's what I'm pushing.
What are we on the precipice of?
Well, I think weren't you just talking about it the other day? Everyone I hear on the inside says we're about to attack Iran. I think you just said something about that the other day. Am I wrong about that? I thought I saw in one of your interviews that you did.
No. Okay. That doesn't mean we are on the verge of a war. I mean, you keep referring to we being in wars. There's a very big difference between a country having a military that's engaged and a country being at war. This country has not been at war for 25 years. You have not been fighting for the American homeland for 25 years.
Yes, we haven't. That's true. Right. We haven't had a war on our shores. We've been picking on third world countries halfway around the world.
Well, you haven't been randomly picking on them. I mean, Afghanistan, you went...
I didn't say it was random.
Yeah, right, okay. It wasn't like you suddenly decided to bomb, again, Myanmar or something. You went to Afghanistan to find bin Laden and take revenge for 9/11 and stop an attack like that happening again on the American homeland. That is very different from a country being at war.
Yeah, but that's a total mischaracterization of the war in Afghanistan. It's one thing to say that might be an accurate characterization of the special operations mission in late 2001, but then we fought a 20-year regime change war against the Taliban.
Because you got dragged into the quicksand of war.
Oh, yes. Okay, fine, but fine. I thought it wasn't a war. Like, what? I don't get your argument.
No, I said it was a war. It's your use of we as if you're personally like suffering this war. Yeah, you're a taxpayer.
When I say we,
we're taxpayers,
implied,
so we pay for it. Okay, fine.
Douglas, if I went back and corrected you on every time you've used the term "we" to refer to your government or something like that, like if I were to say, "Oh, we just imposed tariffs on China," would you point out that I didn't, and it was the Trump administration?
You take it obviously very personally, and that's your right to do so, of course. I'm just trying to make sure we're accurate here.
What do you think I'm taking personally?
Just that, the American wars.
Sure, yeah, I think they've killed hundreds of thousands of people and cost my country $8 trillion and degraded my country very much.
And there's a very good argument to make on that. I'm still slightly bemused about this move from I'm an expert on this and I have views to I'm a comedian.
I've never claimed to be an expert on anything.
This is the problem, Joe. I mean, if somebody says
you have to claim to be an expert on something to have an opinion on something,
you don't have to be. You don't have to be. But
so
this is like
issue?
I'm not a historian, but I'm pumping out history.
But wait a minute,
I'm not an expert, but I'm talking all the time about this.
But you're not
thing.
even talking about specifically on what he just said.
No, I'm saying this is my point about this. You say I'm not an expert.
So what's the solution? To not talk about it?
No, it's to have more experts around.
No, the expert class hasn't done a great job.
I know.
This is follow the science.
Yeah, but you know what? I agree with that. I just said to you, I agree with that.
I know.
But
So
one
Douglas,
of the problems
during
is,
all of COVID, I will put my track record against any of the expert class on COVID. I'm glad to do that. So should I have just shut up? Should I have shut up by opposing lockdowns and opposing vaccine mandates and talking about the argument at the time? You realize that's the entire argument that you're making. Let the experts handle this.
No.
You're not an expert. I was right. I was just a comedian.
You're wildly not listening to what I'm saying. I think you have to take, I think we should agree perhaps on the following, that one major thing can break down in front of your eyes, or many major things. And it does not mean that every single one of the sewer gates should be lifted. Okay?
Yeah, I get that point.
But who's saying it should be?
I'm saying this is the chatter on what is part of our side at the moment, is that a lot of the sewer gates are being lifted, sometimes by people who know that they're doing it, sometimes by people who don't, sometimes by people who say, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. But at the very least, there's some damn hygiene that should be required, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but sure.
Just that. Let's have a bit of hygiene on our own side, not lift every sewer gate.
And when you say our own side, you mean the right wing, broadly speaking?
Broadly speaking, and I'm sort of funny about libertarians. I'm never quite sure. I always think I think libertarians are essentially the bisexuals of politics. They should just choose, Joe. They should choose. It's kind of, they just want everything at the buffet.
That's very funny. Well, I think we want something. I don't know. Okay, that's a weird way to put it, but I get your point. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know. Look, I mean, essentially, I just don't. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. But if your argument is that, like, you're saying I claim to be an expert, but then I have like a parachute to get out of it by being like, hey, I'm just a comedian who's just saying this. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever like really claimed to be an expert. I have opinions on things. I know, but because I'm interested in these topics.
Yeah, I know. But isn't it weird to go around, for instance? I mean, let's get to the last year and a half. It's a bit weird to be simultaneously saying, I'm not an expert on a conflict and talking about it everywhere.
I don't think so. Not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't think like, I don't know. I don't see how you...
Do you talk about these things?
Which things?
All these things that we're talking about.
Some of them, yeah.
Are you an expert?
I am on some, yes.
On some,
but you're talking about some that you're not an expert on.
You'll notice that I didn't...
What should you do if those subjects get breached?
Well, I think that you educate yourself as much as you can.
Should you say I'm not an expert and then give your opinion if you're in the middle of a conversation?
I think it's, as I say, I think that it's a weird move to say, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to talk about it nonstop. I think that is strange.
Listen, I will certainly concede that I am weird. So I'm not disagreeing with you. It's weird that I'm as obsessed with all this stuff as I am. I mean, like, okay, I'm a weird guy. I tell jokes at nightclubs and then get obsessed with politics and monetary policy and like, okay, fine. But I just like fundamentally disagree with this idea that, which I really do think is quite anti-democratic in spirit and quite, elitist, that there's an expert class. They can have opinions on all of these things. It's weird for any regular person who's just read about it.
Not my view.
Seems like what you're saying.
I conceded already. I said a long time ago that I believe much of the expert class let itself and us all down very badly. And I think that happened in foreign policy in areas, not every area, but it happened in some areas. I think it happened with COVID in many areas, but that does not mean that it's just a free-for-all. No. There are some things we can still verify to be true and can still agree on as baseline levels of agreement in a free society. And yes, everyone is free to air their views, but it does not mean that everyone who sounds off on an issue, whether it's World War II, the war in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, has an equally valid point of view. No.
I certainly wouldn't argue. I mean, that to me is just batting down a straw man. I mean, I certainly wouldn't argue that everyone has an equally valid point of view. And I certainly wouldn't argue that there shouldn't be some standards of like who you would want to find interesting and talk to and who you wouldn't. But also it's like, so let's have the conversation that like, I don't know, like if there's, if there are experts out there who can smack all of this stuff down or just destroy every point that I make over the years or whatever, like, okay, so then do it. And then let's see.
Yeah, I know, but well, that's a bit weird because also then it's like did the debate me bro thing. But
you just criticize Daryl for not debating.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I know. Let me just make the main point. I think what I'm trying to get at, Joe, is that it's a bit like the Twitter algorithm thing, which is, yes, everyone is and should be free to say what they like on Twitter, apart from whatever the very fringe things of like immediate incitement to violence and all that kind of thing. But we all know that one of the oddities of Twitter, including since Elon took over, is that what you hope is a restored marketplace of ideas ends up pushing you really crazy shit.
Yes.
And that is what I'm suggesting is happening on a podcast level and maybe on a wider level beyond that. I get stuff on Twitter that I just do not want. I do not want a guy with 1,500 followers who's got some zany new view on something, who isn't an expert, but is an expert, to be pushed at me. And effectively what is happening with the Twitter algorithm is happening everywhere else as well. And we're all for the open marketplace of ideas. I want that. I thrive in it. But it is different once you get into the thing of, is something manipulating the algorithm behind? Is the algorithm being pushed on me? Why am I being given this? Why am I not being given that? Why am I being constantly pushed this view? And I think that the answer to a great degree is the same thing in your world as it is in the Twitter world, which is, if you go straight online and you say, JFK file drops, watch live stream of Kennedy historians reading the papers live, you're not going to get any views. No one's going to watch it. That's what's needed is for the people who know the documents to go through the documents. But you and I know that if, as there was some guy who did immediately, you do something like live stream Mossad involvement in JFK, you're going to milk it. You're going to cream it online. The money comes in. I'm saying that there's a similar algorithm in all of our lives that we're not as aware of as we should be, which is that because we all know this at some level, that there are certain things that get a bit of your base going or get people going interesting and crazy, and then they start debating it and all that sort of thing. And that algorithm of online seems to me to be spilling into the real world.
I don't disagree that there's certainly more sensationalist stuff will get you more clicks. I also don't think it's not really unique to social media or podcasting. I mean, this is
believe me, I write for the tabloids.
Yeah, right. This has always been true. Right? So yeah, okay. So it's kind of one of the problems of humanity.
Arguing against that. It's certainly never my intention when I talk to someone to try to get more views. It sounds crazy, but I'm only talking to people that I'm interested in talking to. And in Daryl's case, it's because I've been a listener of his podcast for years.
What do you think? What are you doing? It's like freezing outside.
Slim Frog Selections. That's it. This is like genuinely how I perceive things. Well, that's why you're here. I'm genuinely interested in your views as well, even though you completely disagree with him. This is the marketplace of ideas in real time.
I agree. Although, as I say, I think you've massively underrepresented the pro-Ukraine argument and the pro-Israel argument in the last 2 years.
I don't know. I mean, well...
That's my observation.
Okay. You're totally allowed to have that observation. What's the pro-Ukraine argument that you think is not being represented enough?
Well, my broad view is that, again, something to do with the algorithm, that anything that is conspiratorial about Zelensky or the Ukrainians in the conflict does very well. Anything that says, actually, the Ukrainian army is fighting to try to retain as much of their country as they can, doesn't do as well. I think that everything that is pushing the idea that, for instance, the Americans caused it or something like that does well. I think everything that says, actually, in February 2022, Vladimir Putin's tanks invaded Ukraine and they shouldn't have done, doesn't do as well.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that what Vladimir Putin did wasn't horrific.
That's not my point. The point is that after that, there's a whole set of things. Let's look at, for instance, the issue of corruption.
Okay.
Ukraine is a pretty corrupt country by EU standards, by World Bank standards. And it's been a problem, as it is in that neck of the woods. And it's understandable that if the US is one of the countries putting money and arms into Ukraine, then it's going to be a subject of legitimate interest to the American people and others, the European taxpayers. Nevertheless, you end up in this, and I know this because it's the same thing in the old media. You end up on like the new bit of the story, and there's always a risk that you will lose sight of the beginning of the story. For instance, I mean, Putin's corruption is legendary, gargantuan, and not as interesting, it seems to me. The algorithm doesn't push that. And I think that's, to a greater extent, the case with the Israel-Hamas war as well.
Well, isn't there a little bit of a concern? Like, I would say a couple things here. Number one, I'm not denying, I don't know how the algorithm works or what it's pushing. And it's an interesting thing that we probably should all know more about. But I think there's a danger when you're to just classify everything as, well, the algorithm pushes this and doesn't push this. It's like, it could also be that some ideas are just resonating more and some ideas are more popular than other ideas. And there's probably both of those things are at work in that dynamic.
Sure.
But I also think that something like, the reason why, say, talking about Ukrainian corruption is more interesting in a lot of ways than talking about Russian corruption is obviously because, like, well, one of these countries is an enemy and the other one is one that we're sending tens of billions of dollars to. And so, yes, debating on between Zelensky and the weapons companies, I don't know, he says he only got $70 billion of it, but we've spent closer to 170, so whatever. But the point is that obviously, if there is a country that we are propping up, funding, arming, and they're corrupt, I would say my starting point would always be to be more concerned with that corruption than an enemy country, which is almost kind of a given, is a corrupt country. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there are fringes of the right who might say, like, Vladimir Putin's some great guy or something like that. But that is, I really do not think that is the argument that most people who are critical of this, of Biden's policy, are making.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the interesting things that happens in this is the old cliche of losing the wood for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens an awful lot. And it's the nature of the old news cycle, let alone the current one, the social media era. Actually, I remember that, so I don't go back to World War II. Let me just very quickly, I remember this debate with Pat Buchanan when he was debating much more learned historians on the subject of the origins of World War II. And the whole thing got lost in all of this sort of mad puzzle of views about iron ore production in the Bavarian forest and this sort of thing. And I remember that everyone was all over the place, and the moderator turned to the historian Andrew Roberts and said, Andrew Roberts, why did World War II begin? And he said, World War II began because Hitler invaded Poland. And those moments come along quite often at the moment, which is, yes, there's an awful lot of very interesting things to look into. There's a lot of very interesting things going on which we should all be able to talk about and do talk about. But sometimes you have to remember the origin causes of things as well, and you have to stick to keeping that in mind.
Yeah, well,
I think that a lot of people are pretty bad at the moment of keeping that in mind. Like, you can concede Ukrainian corruption, you can concede all sorts of things, and still not lose sight of the thing of, if Russia rolls tanks into neighboring countries, it can't be allowed.
Oh, well, listen, okay, so on that, I think we have an area of agreement. And I do think, like, even while I much prefer the path that Donald Trump is pursuing to the path that Joe Biden pursued when it comes to the war in Ukraine, and of course, this is, Donald Trump's thing.
Cannot be allowed.
He's going to call you every bad nickname that there is. But when he
when you don't piss him off.
Well, sure. But when he's
the Danes come to mind.
I believe he said that Zelensky started the war,
yes,
which is like, okay, all right, that's a little bit.
109 countries, and this is going to be 110 countries, so get ready. And now you're being thrown out of Gaza. They threw you out of Jordan. They threw you out of Lebanon. They threw you out of Kuwait. You're being thrown out of the United States because nobody likes jihadist terror. And now you're being thrown. Now you are being thrown out of Gaza because you are savage. It's unacceptable in the West. And no one, all people in Jordan are Palestinians. You in Gaza, no one will lift a finger to defend you. The Arabs are finished with you because you are savage. The Arabs are done with you, Princey. Nobody wants you. They do not want you. Therefore, you will leave. You will pack your. Interestingly, you probably missed the 15 planes a day that are leaving, filled with Palestinians who have had enough of savages like you. Because there are. That's so not true. There are decent Palestinians, and they are finished with savages like you. They come on the app. Their airplanes are documented. It's tough for you to hear. I understand. It is tough for you to hear. And when I give you the truth, you freak out. But it's tough on a show. We get you freaking out. Feel free to freak out, Princey. The world is done with you and your jihadist terror. Put your little dwarfy fingers in your little dwarfy ears and go la 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 la. Because you don't want to hear what I'm saying. But you hear me, Princey. You hear me with your stubby little dwarfy fingers in your ears. The world is finished with your terrorism. We're sick of jihad. We're sick of Hamas. We're sick of Boko Haram. We're sick of Al-Shabaab. We're sick of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. We're sick of Fatah. And now, since you decided to fight us, we will fight you. We will defeat you. We will crush you. And we will provide an opportunity for the decent Palestinians to live in peace and prosperity as our neighbors, if any remain. And you can deal with that, Princey Pooh. You can deal with it. It ain't gonna change. Listen to the old man. Sorry, Princey Pooh. Nobody wants to hear the squeaking of a dwarf. With your little dwarfy vocal cords and your children's clothes. Nobody needs to hear from you, Princey.
Prince, what year did your parents stop finally giving you a...
Edward, you want to speak a little bit to change?
I just want to say one thing, Amos. And Normal comes here and lies. No, he never sources.
Okay.
Source.
Yes, you're not lying. Yes, you are saying the truth. Edward, so
I'll change this. I'll change the topic a little bit.
Edward,
So
only Edward speaking.
So it looks like it looks like Hamas is in Egypt, and Israel is also in Egypt, finalizing the modified, I call it the modified ceasefire agreement. It's supposed to be a bridge agreement that leads into phase 2.
And they're talking about
It's not gonna happen. It's gone. It's gonna be wiped off the map.
between 8 and 11 hostages will be exchanged for around 2,000 Palestinians. So they're, and it should be in effect within the next 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right now,
look at the prophet Edward. He's a prophet.
We call somebody that reads articles in the news a prophet. Yeah, very low standards.
Congratulations.
Sam.
Okay, look at Edward. Palestine is gonna be your 110th country. Congratulations.
I don't know. I mean, I'm 42. Like, I've met a lot of Palestinians. You know, they have these passports, but they never really quite seem to have a country. They always seem to have conflict. Why is that? Why can't they just keep their hands in their pockets and not commit terrorism? I don't know. Maybe it's the Islam. Maybe it's the jihadists. Maybe it's got something to do with that. I don't know. I know they don't just like eating shawarma. I know they like committing themselves to death wars and death cults in the name of Allah and Muhammad and the Quran. I don't know. It's just my opinion.
We're being streamed on Instagram by Republicans.
Leave, go, Dr.
That guy, Amasakai Republican, he records.
Shirna and Chico, let's leave the room because go try Greenland, Prince. Greenland might be available. Go to Greenland, Prince. Get back your parka. This guy. You can find a parka in the child side. Yeah, we know.
That is a beautiful party hat, Dr. Prince. How many more party hats are you going to have to buy?
Almost, if you don't kick him out, we're gonna leave Almost. Don't want to be streamed. That's okay. Nobody's gonna miss you. I promise you. Go. Go. Sure not, Chico. Let's go. One like you, man. Go, please. Go. Let's go, guys. Let's go. Nobody's paying you to be here. Go.
Go, go.
Go to Indonesia. Finally. On October 7th, they had GoPros recording everything. Now they're afraid of somebody recording in Clubhouse. Go make it make sense.
He's live streaming us, everybody. Let's run away.
Well, for the record, I wasn't actually there on October 7th, so I don't know why you've grouped me into that.
Nobody felt that you were anywhere. Just the people you support.
No, I don't actually.
The people you support were there.
I don't know.
He joined the cause after 7th of October.
No, I don't support them. No. I was aware of that.
You don't support Palestinians. Recording him, he said he doesn't support the Palestinians. Aziz.
No, I was born before October 7th, so I was born before.
No, don't you support the Palestinians?
No, I support the Palestinians, not the Hamas.
So decide.
Two very different things.
So decide.
They could just, they're two very different things. Obviously, you guys are not aware of that because you're limited to media and information.
Yeah, we must be limited. Okay, who's in charge of the Palestinians, Aziz? Please educate us. Tell us who's in charge.
Well, wait, hold on a second. So they're not a monolith, so what do you mean in charge?
No, of the country, the state, the people, the war, the conflict, the army. Who's in charge, Aziz?
Well, their leadership is not monolith. Even they're divided.
Who's in charge, Aziz?
Well, like I said, Israel's leadership done a great job.
No, not Israel. Who's in charge of Palestine, Aziz?
Well, it depends. Are we talking PLO? Are we talking Hamas?
I'm asking you. You seem to know something about this.
They're divided.
Okay, so which two people are in charge? Tell us. They're divided into how many pieces?
What is this? What is this?
This is your test coming up. This is your A-levels. Who's in charge of Palestine?
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Just try to slow it down, Aziz, and speak eloquently. We know you're such an eloquent speaker. Just slow yourself down and take your time and respond succinctly in a complete thought. A couple sentences will do. You're so eloquent.
In a way you guys can understand. So
who do you support?
Listen, everybody, listen here good. I'm gonna get him a damn truck.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna get me now, buddy. You gonna want me damn Trump, know what I mean? You ain't gonna cut my goddamn truck. We're gonna put some goddamn tariffs on them, know what I mean? Tariffs on them.
I'm waiting for you to tell us. Who do you support in Palestine?
115% tariffs on them.
Who do you support?
Hi, authentic. Authentic.
Terrorists. Who is no? That's not a person. Who's in charge of terrorists? Who in Palestine do you support?
I support.
Which party?
I support deportation, mass deportation, and terrorists.
Right. In other words, you have no clue, do you?
I support my truck, V8. I support my truck.
El Normo, don't you see what he's doing right now? He's actually showing us that he's just a memory box repeating things. It's all Dr. Aziz actually does. He's a propaganda promulgator.
But I was talking about something you know nothing about called Palestine. So who should we make a deal with, Aziz? Who should we make a deal with?
So unlike you guys, I don't have a script. So I'm just, speaking my mind, So
Oh, yeah, everybody's operating on a script except for you, Dr. Aziz.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. It's like the Truman Show.
Do I want peace? I want peace everywhere, yeah.
Okay, delusional. Oh, you are. And
that includes everywhere.
But we're dealing with you anyway. Okay, so who should Israel make a peace deal with? Tell us the name of the person. Take your time.
Well, the problem is I can name the person. I mean, the chief negotiator got a
Let's hear it. Name.
Name the person.
Tell us.
The
Who should we make a deal with?
The chief negotiator got assassinated, so probably not him now.
The chief negotiator of what? The chief negotiator of what?
Oh my God.
What's his name? What's his name?
This is like point scoring, man.
What's his name? The chief negotiator.
This is a low level of discourse.
I know what you're talking about. But what's his name? Yeah.
Just going to Google to find. I'm not even going to tell you the name. I was not Googling. I didn't.
You're not going to tell us? You're going to withhold it from us?
I didn't Google the first question.
Aziz, can you name a Palestinian newspaper?
Yeah. Oh my God! What if I get this?
Oh my God! Give me a name. If I would ask you an Israeli one, do you know an Israeli one? Do you know an Israeli newspaper?
Can you name me a Palestinian utilities company that supplies?
No. I'm asking you. No, Aziz, do you know of an Israeli newspaper? Do you know of an Israeli newspaper?
Oh my God! What are these questions?
Do you know the name of an Israeli? Because you do. For example, Haaretz. Okay, you heard of this, right? Can you give me a name of a Palestinian newspaper?
Oh my!
You heard of it?
Oh my God! Maybe it's a
Oh my God!
Oh my God! The newspaper.
Oh my God!
I don't know.
Maybe we should read it.
Like this is a level of discourse that's below me. I just can't.
What happened? You want to read the Palestinian newspaper?
Is it really below you?
Educated.
This is like playground. This is like playground.
They paid the solicitors.
Yeah. So you know what? Give me a name of a famous Palestinian. Let me think.
Who wants to be a millionaire? Like what?
No, I want to know if you know so much about
like name of a talk show host.
You know what? I would like to learn. Listen.